Um, dois, testando. Bem? Estamos dando pause.
Good morning. So to start, I'm going to read a passage from the book Living Spring, Fonte Viva, from Francisco Cândido Xavier. And the passage is called Let Us Go Further. accepting the power of Jesus, remaining certain of one's own resurrection after death, and comforting oneself with the benefits of faith constitute a rudimentary phase in learning about the gospel. Practicing the lessons we have learned by associating them with our everyday lives represents the living and sanctifying course. The student that never goes beyond reciting the alphabet will never penetrate the luminous mental realm of the great masters. It is not enough to place our soul at the door of the temple and kneel reverently. We have to return to our usual pathways and manifest within ourselves the principle of redemptive faith, thus sublimating our everyday lives. What would we say about a worker that only went up to the door of his workshop and praised its greatness without dedicating himself to the work it demands? What would we say about an admirably equipped ship that remained in the port without ever sailing? There are thousands of believers in the good news in this lamentable position of stagnation. They are usually persons who are correct regarding all the rudimentary principles of Christ's doctrine. They believe, they worship, they console themselves faultlessly, but they do not progress in order to become wiser and nobler. From the human point of view, they do not know how to act, to struggle, or to suffer when alone. In order to counteract such problems, Paul states with profound wisdom, leaving the elementary teachings about the doctrine of Jesus behind. Let us go on to perfection, not repenting over and over again. Otherwise, we are nothing more than authors of dead works. Therefore, let us not be like students who study and study, but who never learn how to harmonize themselves with the lesson. And let us also remember that if repentance is useful from time to time, repenting over and over is a sign of stubbornness and weakness. So let us pray. I invite you to close your eyes and elevate your thoughts. Thank you, Father, for this beautiful day where we gather together in this beautiful center to share this beautiful love for each other. Thank you for the opportunity to learn, for the opportunity to develop, the opportunity to grow. Thank you for the examples. Thank you for the teachings. Thank you for your eternal and infinite love to each one of us at every moment of our lives. If at one point we don't feel your love, it's not because you stopped to give it to us. It's because we departed from your loving arms. So help us, Father, to find our way back to your lovely embrace, to your caring hands, and to the eternal happiness that we are deemed to share. Amen. So be it. Great. So, good morning to everyone. It's very nice to have each one of you here in this beautiful Sunday morning. It's getting cold again. We are on the Nile. Try to pretend that's not getting cold, but the cold is just over here. I know. So today we are going to talk about the commitment to self-transformation. And why is that important for us? Right? Like, it's quite interesting. When are we going to start to think about self-transformation? And I was talking to someone one day, and the person said to me, like, I don't need to change anything. I'm already perfect. I said, okay. It's funny. But when we look to ourselves, we know that we can see many faults, many problems, many things to change, right? We do have many points that we believe we need to improve and all that. And the virtue of the month is called authenticity. So when we talk about authenticity, we talk about yes, yes, and no, no, right? Like there's no half yeses in this, and sometimes we act like this in this situation, but for me it's okay, for the other person it's not okay, or it's okay to act with this person like this, but not with the other one. So like we change our points of view all the time. Authenticity is about yes, yes, and no, no. So it's about keeping yourself, doing the right thing every time. So I'm going to talk about that. How does authenticity can help me achieve my goal? And our picture of the moment is the new you and the old you, and that's all about the self-transformation. So this talk is based in one of the chapters from this book, the legacy of Paul of Tarsus to the revived Christianism. And it's an amazing book as well because it uses the example of Paul to talk about the transformation and to talk about his teachings to each one of us as well. So when we talk about the self-transformation, is it easy to do? No, it's not. Not as easy as we would like it to be, right? Because sometimes we're still too lazy to try to change something. And why is a commitment to self-transform? Why is that? So we start to have some questions to reflect. First one is, am I committed to the self-transformation? How do I perform this self-transformation? How can I do that? Why is it important? And how do I know if I'm doing the right thing? As I said, this talk is based on the book, and basically it's minimum what I have to say compared to what is in the book as well. So we have the book either in the library, we have the book in the bookstore, anything, but we indicate if you feel touched by the passages of the book or by what we talk, to look in here. And there's always the doctrine as well. All these beautiful books full of information that will help us to move forward. And in this book, the chapter 2 is called The Commitment to Self-Transformation, and talks about like why to pursue the self-transformation, the decision to do so, like how can I decide to do so, the conscience to the self-transformation, the pathway that we need to follow, and the result. But this is not the recipe. There's no recipe for anything. We don't indicate the recipe, right? It's not like, oh, I finish all the courses I have to do, now I can graduate. That's not like that. So each one of us needs to investigate their own soul, their own lives, to identify the points they need to work on, the things they need to change, the things they need to improve. So the first question is why to pursue the self-transformation? Why is that important? Can anybody answer?
I believe when we we go to this path of self-transformation. We are not transformation just ourselves. We are becoming more example for people.
That's true.
So I think the real transformation of the system starts on the transformation of ourselves.
That's true. Indeed, it's a very important point. So let's see what Paul had to say. Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may discern what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. So many times we say that we are naive, right? We are naive as to we're not able to see, we don't understand. What is good? What is bad? Can we discern? Do I know that I'm doing the good? Do I know that I'm doing the wrong thing? Am I able to understand that? So here, Paul invites us to renew our minds, to renew ourselves. If you visit his stories, his books, not just these ones, but Paul and Stephen. If you visit the New Testament of the Bible, you can see the letters from Paul to all these churches that he helped to build. And he talks about that. And he talks about the old man, and he talks about the new man. So what is the old man or the old person? Is the one still attached, still related to the habits that are not good, right? And the new person is the transformed person, is the one that does not agree anymore what was done in the past. So when he talks about our self-transformation, he says, everything is lawful for me, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is lawful for me, but I will not let myself be dominated by anything. And in the other one, he says everything is lawful, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is lawful, but not everything builds up. So what we can understand, can we do anything that we want? Yes, right? We are free to do so. We have the free will to do anything. But not everything is beneficial. And when we talk about this, not everything is beneficial. So basically, we are free to do whatever we want, but we have to face the consequences of what we did as well. I mean, that can be positive, that can be negative as well, right? So those can be the consequences. Many times these consequences of what is not beneficial will come to our door. And we may complain about that as well. But that's not the right thing. We need not complain. We need to understand, right? When the consequences come, as we talk about suffering at one point, we may suffer the consequences as like the old idea of suffering. And in fact, we call those as experience that is a challenge for us to learn from, right? So when we have all these consequences of our acts coming to us, and we may dislike the result, what does that teach us? That teaches a lesson that's not the path we should follow. And we are the ones that should understand and should try to pursue the right path. So basically, every one of these consequences are going to be invitations. When he talks about the opportunity or the invitation to self-transform, he said that we may exert in our lives the changes that we don't need to live with all the problems we live and all the consequences of the wrongdoings we had. If we change the way we behave, if we change ourselves. One of the good examples that they bring is, by example, if I eat too much, I feel sick, right? That's a simple consequence. And why is that? Because there's a limit for that, right? Like I need to control myself in that sense. So when I am too angry, when I fight too much, there will always be consequences as well in the same sense. Do we feel good about it? No. And every moment that we feel bad about something, it's a big learn for us to change. So let's move on. Here he talks, for he that sowed to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that sowed for the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. So what he's talking here, what is he talking about? For the one that sows for the flesh, if you live for our body, our living being of this exactly moment, my person right now, if I live for here and I not live for the Spirit, I'm not profiting as an immortal soul in the sense that I'm not developing myself, right? I am not developing myself as an immortal spirit. We talk about living for the earth, living for all. I am Guilherme now, but I'm not Guilherme. I'm as an immortal spirit that have this existence, have this moment of experience. Should I live for the immortal spirit? Try to become a better person, try to become a better, more developed spirit, or should I just live the life that I have right now, with all the pleasures, with all the time that I can spend doing anything? The invitation to change is also an invitation to see what can we do to improve ourselves, to become happier, to become more developed. So we have these sign talk about the old you and the new you. And then we have the question about how to make the decision. And a very important question comes up. Am I really willing to transform myself and harvest the benefits of this transformation? Or I want to keep myself in self-deception and suffering the consequences of it? We can use many examples, right? We can go to the examples of the food again, which is a very unbiased example. We talk about good eating, healthy eating. We know what is good for us to eat and what is not. And we keep eating what is not healthy. And we think about it, like just this time, I deserve it. It's just another one. Maybe, like that will not be a problem. Tomorrow I'll take care of it. Tomorrow I'll take care of it. Isn't it the same with the bad habits that we have? Why not? Like I fought with her, but kind of she deserved it, or with him because like he bothered me too much. Is it the way? Like finding excuses, finding masks to use every time we do a mistake? That is self-deception. Auto-engano. I had the reasons to do so I believe it's okay. Well, everybody does it. So why can't I do that as well? Oh, God forgives everyone, right? So he will forgive me as well. Of course, God forgives us, but we need to forgive ourselves first. Our own conscience need to be developed to forgive ourselves first. So it's never a matter of God forgive or God love, because he always forgive and he always love. But the absence of love that we feel does not come from God. It comes from ourselves that don't love ourselves. From the absence of self-love. And it's a very important point when we realize that. Anytime we feel alone, it's because we are isolating ourselves. Because God is always with us. Every time we feel that we're not loved, it's because we're not loving ourselves. Because God's love is always around us. So, understanding the will of self-transform. I want to transform myself. And then self-control is another important virtue in this point. Because I need to control myself in the beginning to not fall back and redo all the steps in trying to avoid. Self-control. So,
Comments?
sorry? Sure, of course.
When I was reading that question, am I really willing to transform myself? And then I'm thinking, before that, we need to understand or to feel that we have something to change.
Of course.
Because a lot of times we don't want to admit that.
Yes.
Because we know this is happening to me because of this external situation, right? It's another person's fault or whatever, right? So then you're not really at that point yet.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, every time something doesn't feel right, that your
Yes.
conscience is always like bringing points out, and then you're like, I'm not happy, or then that's the time too.
Yes.
And you have to want to make a change,
Mm-hmm.
to transform.
Yes.
Then comes the efforts. Oh, it's a long list.
Yes, indeed, and that's a very
But we can
important
do
point.
it.
We can do it, yes. When we talk about a very actual point, a very, very important point that are mental illnesses in our society, we talk about anxiety, we talk about depression, we talk about all these problems coming up. And what I talk about that in the treatment is the first step is to understand and assume that you have that. Right? Because if we deny, like I have a condition, like I can have diabetes, but I'll eat all the sugar I want because I don't believe that's true. That make me good? No, right? It's the same thing. If I don't see the problems that I have, I keep enforcing on the other way instead of trying to solve the problems I have. I keep on doing and accumulating, trying to throw everything under the carpet, right? And then at one moment, you're not able to work with that anymore. We need to solve the problem. So if you go further, look at these. It's funny, we think that these talks, these ideas are from now. But look at what Paul says. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing. So he says that he wants to do something, but he keeps on doing the other way around. As we do, like, I want to do this, I want to do that, but I keep on doing the same mistakes. Now, if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I who do it, but the sin that dwells within me. So it's our old ideas, our old habits that still move us to do that. But happily, we are able to see and know that we don't want to do that anymore. So I find it to be a law that when I want to do right, evil lies close at hand. For I delight in the law of God in my inner being. So he feels inside. He feels delighted with the ideas of doing the good things inside. But I see in my members another law waging war against the law of my mind and making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members. So we see our old habits making our inner self captive. So the ego basically trying to take control. We're not putting the ego to serve the body, we are serving the ego, and that's not the proper way. And he talks about that in 2,000 years ago, or around that time. We see that Paul was already dwelling with that. And we think, oh no, it's just a problem that we have right now. No, it's a problem of the society. It's a problem that we faced before and are going to face in the next lifetimes as well. Because if we are here to learn, and we are here to improve. So the self-transformation, will not take place in just one lifetime, right? We need to improve and we need to work. We can have the merit to develop as many virtues as we can in one lifetime, sure, but as a step-by-step process. I will not become good from the night to the day. I will not become meek from the night to the day. I need to do a step-by-step process. Alirio, that the author of the book, talks about self-love in one of his talks, and it's very nice that he says, so we can imagine that our inner self is like a desert, and the love that we have is a small seed, and every time that we go to visit the seed, we can just put a drop of water in it. So we do that a day, 2 days, a week, and we say it's not changing anything. Of course, we're putting a drop of water in the seed, right? We're not able to make that seed grow so fast. So it is a process that needs our will to change. We need to do that. We really need to move forward. But we need to understand that we can't force anything to change. That we need to make it change step by step, slowly. And he continues saying here, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then I myself serve the law of God with my mind, but with my flesh I serve the law of sin. So again, he talks about this dwelling that we all face every day. And basically, we know who should win. That's our immortal spirit, and not the law of sin, not the body, but the soul, in that sense. So if we know that, we need to go back to the question, am I really willing to transform myself and harvest the benefits of this transformation? Are we? So to continue, I'll give talk about the story in the book Contos e Apólogos from either Brother X or Humberto de Campos by Francisco Xavier Xavier. Here's the book, 1958. And Humberto de Campos always wrote small stories in his books. He was a writer and a journalist in Brazil, and as a spirit, he kind of called himself the journalist of the spirit side as well. And he wrote many interesting stories in his books. And this one is always very nice, and I enjoy this story very much. And talks about tonight. Here is just a picture of a similar act, that's San Martin and the beggar. But I would like to keep the image to think about the character of our story, which is D'Arsonval. D'Arsonval was an honored lord of France, and he traveled away from his home, his armor shining in the sun. And he was riding to Italy to solve some political problems. So, as he was riding there, he saw a beggar. And the beggar extended his wounded arms, full of ulcers, and asked for money. And he got his wallet, his bag of money, and full of coins, and threw it to the beggar and kept on moving. He didn't stop to see anything, just went, because he had no time. So what happened as well? D'Arsonval, this lord of France, repeated that chess several times. He went to Spain, and he saw the beggar. He went to England and saw the beggar. He went to a distant harbor and saw the beggar on his way. And every time he would give his cape, or his hat, or a ring, or some bread, But he would never stop to look at the beggar. He was always running to do something else. So he was always running and never stopping to say anything. Just as he was in his horse, he would pick something and throw that to the beggar and go away. So he was invited to represent his countrymen, his people, in an expedition by Godfrey of Bouillon in a crusade, expecting to free the Holy Land. So he went to Jerusalem to fight. And he was captured there. So he was tortured, and he felt sorrowful, full of problems. He was separated from his people for many, many years. He suffered misery, vexation, attacks, and humiliation, until one day, a man converted into ghost returns to the home that don't recognize him anymore. So we see that he did many things, traveled to many places, but after all the suffering, he comes home where nobody recognizes him anymore. And then D'Archenval remembered the beggar and went to where he was. And the beggar opened his arms and hugged him very closely. And from the beggar, he heard, D'Archenval, come to me. I am Jesus, your friend. Whoever looks for me and the assistance of the brother, find me sooner. When you were looking for me in the faraway lands, I was waiting for you here so close. I am grateful for the gold, the jewels, the cake, the coat, the bread that you gave to me. Well, for years and years, I was extending my arms, waiting for your heart. The former night couldn't see anything but a path of light between the land and the sky. So when we talk about this, how can the story of D'Archenval can apply to what we were talking about just now? We keep on running with our lives without stopping, without thinking. We give things away. Oh, they may be in need of that. We do, and we do for here, we do for there. I do for you, for her, for them. Oh, they're in need of me this time. I need to help these, I need to help that. But when do I stop and help myself? When does that happen? Why is that important? We keep on doing the wrong movement of trying to do things for the others without helping us first. Because when I give something to someone, I need to get to have that inside me first. I can't love anybody if I don't love myself, because then I don't know what love is, right? If I don't feel it, how can I give it? How I can be kind to others, patience to others, if I'm not patient to myself, if I'm not kind to myself, if I don't care for myself, if we don't exert the virtue, we don't know what the virtue is, do we? It's just a word. So when we talk about D'Archenval, all the suffering he went through was an invitation for him to change as well. When he decided to stop and look for the beggar, he changed his mind. And as Jesus said at that moment in this story, he was waiting for years and years for his heart, for his sentiment, for his feeling. And we many times don't follow that. We keep on doing for the outside, but we don't help the inside. So when we talk about the self-transformation, we need to develop our conscience. We need to wake up our conscience. And in one of the passages, Paul says, wake up from the dead. Wake up from the dead. But he's not talking about resurrection of the body, that everybody will be in an eternal sleep and they will wake up at one point. What he called the dead is the people that wander around without thinking about self-development, that live the life for the pleasures that life have. They're blind. They are dead. When he talks about the wake up, is to wake up our own consciences so we can understand better, so we can improve. And I believe, at least for me, is the way I feel, is many times we have this invitation and we really wake up and we can see. It's like we lie in our bed with closed eyes and then we have beautiful information, beautiful material, like a beautiful talk. We wake up and we start to see. We open our eyes. And many times we wander in the dark and we think like, oh, I don't believe in anything. And then we start to understand more and we start to believe more and we start to develop these virtues within ourselves. And we start to open our eyes. And we are very glad and very happy to see many points when we look back that we're not the same person anymore, right? And that's an invitation for each one of us to repeat. We may not be the best at this moment, but we need to understand that it's a slow process, and every step forward is an important step. That's a beautiful statue. The Thinker, or Le Penseur, from Auguste Rodin, that talks about thinking. Or basically, talking to yourself, which is that what thinking is. Discussing, reflecting, using your own conscience. Because nowadays, it's so easy to not think about anything. Turn on the TV, and the TV is the background, and you put some music on, and you never really stop to think about this. Oh, I have to run here and there and there and there and there, and then I come home and then I sleep, and the other day is the same. I don't really stop and go through my thoughts or my actions and think about that. I keep on living on that self-denial as we talked before. Because, you know what? I don't want to see what I did wrong. Why is that? Am I really willing to transform myself? And we know that to transform ourselves, we first need to understand the laws of God and to accept the laws of God, the law of society, the law of love, the law of fraternity, right? We need to understand that. And the mechanism that we have within ourselves to start to do that is to develop the virtues we have and to bring those virtues to grow. And we may think that the virtues are like seeds, as we talked before as well. Those seeds in the desert, how we go, and every time we exert that virtue, is a drop of water you put in that virtue as well. Kindness, charity, love, meekness. Every time we avoid to do what the old man wants to do, the old person wants to do, and we do what the new person knows that is right, is another drop of water that we put in those plants. And then oops, we talk about, we talk about the path. So basically, we understood the importance of self-transformation. We think about the actions that we need to do. We talk about acceptance, the conscience of doing so. And then we need to talk about the path that we need to follow. So the path we need to follow, is it a hidden path? Is it a secret path? For time and time again, we had the indication of what path to follow. For time and time again, we chose the wrong path. In many incarnations, we may have chosen the wrong path. But the thing is, how long do I still want to keep on doing that? How long do I pretend to be sleeping? Do I want to keep on pretending I am sleeping? How long I want to avoid the change within me? How long? It's a beautiful, beautiful invitation that each one of us receive, that each one of us can choose. To develop our virtues is to grow closer to God. As we get closer and closer, we feel loved, we feel supported, we feel warm, we feel happy. So the path is the path of Jesus, the path of Christ, the path of the many brothers and sisters that came before us and indicated and showed, but we still try not to see. You know what? I don't want to think about it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. Like we just pretend that just the story is not true. All the examples in the books. You know what? Just pretending that I don't want to see that. Many times we do that. Or maybe I can forget about that and do the other thing. Are we really, really willing to transform ourselves? And that's a question that comes to my mind many times. Am I really willing to transform myself? Sometimes seems that I'm not willing to transform myself. But then is an invitation that we all need to decide follow. So when we transform ourselves to become better, what is the result of that? What is the result? Happiness, yes. It's happiness. Each one of the seeds of the virtues that we have inside us, we need to take care of them with love. We need to shower love on them every opportunity that we have. When we talk about the society that we live, and we see these many problems arising, we say, oh, it's all the other people. Bad examples. Is it? Maybe. Maybe yes, maybe no. Right? How can I help to do that? Improve the society that I live. As you said before, I change myself, and changing myself, I change the way I see things. The problems around me, I may be able to see them better now than before. Giving a good example, doing the right thing. How many times in our own lives, each one of us had an example that changed our points of views?
You talk, I remember the souls talking
Mm.
about the timings of the Lord.
Yes.
I remember now the river,
Mm-hmm.
and all the things pass away, just us stay. So
Exactly.
it's important, the meditation every day.
Mm-hmm.
We talk with
Exactly.
ourselves.
Because that was a beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
moment that we had to share. And that's true. Everything passes. The life passes. Why do I need to accumulate things for the one that lives here, but I don't accumulate anything for the one that stays?
Yeah, and I think that's very important points to think about, to reflect, because we are in this material world. There's a purpose for us to be here. So we're not just gonna live as if this doesn't exist. But how are we living this life? Are we living as if we're gonna stay or keep everything with us? Or are we gonna live as immortal spirit that will bring with us what? Only the virtues and the goods that we learn, the transformation, right? Sometimes it's, for me personally, it's a way to think, why am I worrying so much about this? Because whatever happens, this will pass. But am I learning anything with this to make maybe my next life a little bit easier or not? So,
Yes.
and I remember too about question, I remember 900 and something, 919 of the Steve's book. Are we going to talk about that? No?
No, you can't.
No, that's okay. It's just about sometimes when we have difficulties looking inside of ourselves and how
Yes.
to help us evaluate what we are doing or how can we improve.
Mm-hmm.
There is this question where Saint Augustine, sorry, my English,
Yes.
but, so it's not a recipe, but it's a way to help us think about the transformations of what we can do or how can we
The
think
good
about.
man, you talked about the good man.
No, it's 919. Well, I'll find out later. But it's kind of, well, it's a homework maybe for all of us to look at. And it's kind of help us as a guideline if we want to look at into the things we can improve and help us see the seeds that we need to put more water and the ones that I'm really not even putting any soil or anything, right?
And back to the virtue of the month, authenticity. How does that help me with my path? If we know what we have to do, we need to have the will to keep ourselves in the right path. The will to say yes, yes, and no, no. And that's an invitation to develop that virtue as well. And a beautiful image representation of what we need to become is the sunflower. And why is that? Because the sunflower grows and follows the sun wherever the sun is. So we can imagine that these small seeds have an objective to follow the sun afterwards. But the only thing that separates the seed from the beautiful flower it needs to be is our own will to change. Because every time we choose not to do what we believe is right, is a day less that the seed have to grow. It is exactly time point. There's that beautiful passage from Francisco Xavier that says that we can go back and make a new beginning, or we can start right now and make a new ending. And when we talk about self-transformation, we can remember again Paul of Tarsus, because who knows his history knows how much he changed from a persecutor, from someone that was trying to kill and, and follow and hunt down the Christians, to the one who was spreading the word of Jesus. You can see how much he changed it from here to here. And when we talk about the difficulties that we have to change the old habits, we can look back to him and see how much he changed it through his will, through his conscience, because he decided to self-transform. He decided to become better at that point. So the invitation for us is always present.
He stayed alone one more time.
Mhm.
He stayed alone.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
To reflect, to change it.
Exactly. He stayed alone in the desert for some time to reflect about that. And it was quite interesting to see in the description that he was in a cave at one point, and he was reflecting about that. And he was suffering. He was feeling guilt about what he had done. He was feeling the impact of his actions. He was thinking that he could not be forgiven, that people would not forgive him, that he had no use, that he had no choice. And then in a dream, or basically a mediumistic dream, he receives the visit of two dear spirits to him that motivate him in the right path. And many people still say, oh, I need a proof, or I need to see, or I need a message from him, a message from her. But the question is, if we do believe in that, if we really believe in that, if we believe in the Spirit, if we believe that a mediumship exists, if we believe in the interaction, if we believe in contact, it's not what I do with the message, but what do I do with the knowledge that that is true? And when we talk about the changes, the self-transformation, we know that God always have his loving arms open to us when we decide to change. There's no eternal punishment. There's no hell, as we say, or use it to. When we talk about heaven and hell, and we say that those are both states of conscience, it's not the forgive that we ask, but the forgive that we give to ourselves, our own conscience. And if we think about that, and we see the example of Paul another time, he had to forgive himself, and he understood that the actions of the past were not the actions he should keep on doing. That was the old man, and through his own work, he became this new man. There is another beautiful book that are examples of leadership and self-transformation, also from Projeto Espírito Santo. And they give three beautiful examples there. One of them is Paul, but the other two are Maria of Magdala and Peter, the apostle. Mary of Magdala faced the questions as well, from her life as a prostitute to a follower of Jesus. You can imagine how much change happened inside her through her own will. And when we talk about Peter, the apostle, we talk about somebody that believed, but believed it until a point. His faith were not grown. Because there's this beautiful passage where Jesus is in the boat and there's a tempest, storm, and Jesus is sleeping in the boat. And he goes running down and asking Jesus to help, and Jesus comes and stops the storm. So basically, he didn't believe that they could survive or they couldn't stop that. There's the other moment when Jesus goes to the water and walks over the water, and he says to Peter, Peter, come. And then he goes. But then for a moment, he kind of stops to believe that he could do that, and he falls in the water. So it's a change for someone that believes in something momentaneously to the strong faith, to the real strong faith, the one that does not fade. So we talk about that, and we talk about the changes we need to have inside us. And that's why the invitation to self-transformation is always an important invitation for us to follow. And again, I have the same question I had before. How long we need to struggle, to suffer the consequences of the bad choices that we have, instead of following the good choices that we can. And always following the examples of Jesus as our model and guide. When we talk about the path and about the example, he resumes everything within him. And that's the talk. Let's see. Victor, can you see if the kids are ready?
Yep.
Thank you. And it's so nice when we see the opportunity that we have with the children as well. We were doing a work last week, and then one of the moms said, it's so nice how he or how she kept the knowledge of like what you talked, because now at home they're discussing and applying that to the little brother and saying like that's a bad choice, that's a good choice, and how that I apply that to my life. It's a good choice, it's a bad choice. Yeah, not today. Okay.
Just
Hmm?
just
Oh, just Sophie. Hmm. And it's phenomenal to see when we discuss these small things with the kids, how much we learn from that as well, right? It's so nice because they have a different point of view than the one we have. And it's so beautiful to see them growing and using what you had to talk. Because many of us, like at one point, may believe, oh, it's just like to spend time. You're not going to learn anything. Really?
it's just simple things. It's yes or no,
Hmm.
right, wrong, not
And that, yes, exactly, not that deep. but
like us.
but that's how it starts,
Yeah.
right? And how many of us would have liked it to have that before, this experience in their lives, right? And why not bring that to children too, right? Just to remember as well, we have our meeting with Projetos, which is September 21st, 2nd, and 20th. Our registrations are still open, and that's another beautiful, beautiful invitation to us to act as a family, not just from here, but whole Canada. There are people coming from different centers, different places, you know, to constitute this fraternal environment that we invite us, that we are invited to do. When we talk about the fraternity spiritus society, that is our society here, we have this beautiful example of how the changes can happen. If we didn't have come together, if we were not sitting here today, this place would not exist. The library that we have will not come together. The many moments each one of us had was supported by the people in the center and received help, received a good word, received comforting, that would not have happened. When we talk about transformation, about the changes we can make, we can think about our own small step over here and how each one of us contributes to this change. So I will do our final prayer before the passes. Thank you, Father, for this beautiful day and the opportunity that we have to share these beautiful teachings. The opportunities that you give us to say yes every day, to follow your steps, to believe in you, to feel your love. For how long? Do I still want to fight against this transformation? Support us, Father, in our choices. Help us grow closer and closer to you through the development of the virtues and feel your love in every day and very aspect of our lives. So be it.